welcome to the Half-Blood Report.
Here we discuss Percy Jackson news, interviews, and all things Raritan. I'm Samuel, your co-host.
And I'm Diego, your other co-host.
And today on the podcast, we have a great guest.
Yep, Topher Bradfield is the founder of Between the Pages and head counselor of Camp Half-Blood Austin branch. And he's here with us today to talk about Camp Half-Blood going virtual. Topher, welcome to the podcast.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here. I'm super excited.
Yeah, no, thanks for agreeing to come on at such short notice.
Yeah, but thanks again. But let's go into the interview now.
Yeah.
Before we talk about Camp Half-Blood having to transition to virtual means this summer, I first wanted to ask for the listeners that might not know, what is Between the Pages, and also what is the Camp Half-Blood Austin branch?
Yeah, so I started Between the Pages in 2018, and I did that because when we looked around the Austin camp branch of Camp Half-Blood, we weren't as diverse. Our camper population wasn't as diverse as we had hoped it would have become. And I figured that getting into parts of our community that didn't have access to our programming and didn't have access to a literary camp would be a really, really good thing for us to do. And the for-profit model for the camp really wasn't going to allow us to grow that way. The camp was also bursting at the seams by then in terms of the number of campers that were coming through. And it seemed the most logical thing to have Between the Pages, what would become Between the Pages, be something that was focused on diversity and equitability for programming. And so we started, Between the Pages, and the focus was giving access to all parts of our community to engage everyone and empower kids to become lifelong readers through engaging in the book worlds of Rick Riordan and Rick Riordan Presents. It was right at that time when Rick was announcing the Rick Riordan Presents titles, and we thought, what better way to bring a diverse set of books into our community than using the Rick Riordan Presents books. And we identified The Storm Runner as the book that we wanted to bring into the Latinx community here in Austin. And so we focused on going into Title I schools that had anywhere from 89% to 99% Latinx student body populations, and bringing in performance readers who were also Latinx to perform the characters in the books, because we felt it was really important, not for me to be up there as one of the performance readers, but for the students to be able to recognize themselves in both the characters in the books and the people reading and performing the books with and for them. All of the students get a copy of the book. We do performance readings. We're with them the entire school year. We plug the characters and the story of the books into everything they touch that year in terms of their curriculum. And it's super, super fun. I mean, we figured, do you think if you were a student and you were learning science or math or social studies, history, art, whatever it was, and you had a story and characters that wove themselves through everything that you touched that year, you think you probably hold on to that information more readily?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe pick up information a little faster, have an adventure to go through? That's what we thought too, right? So we started doing that. And then we would offer scholarships to come to Camp Half-Blood Austin to every student that went through the program. So they got books, they got access to camp, and at the end of the year, the school year that year, we flew, or Disney helped us fly, the author to Austin to come visit the kids in the program and see their end of year projects. It was so much fun. And the kids loved it. It was like the first 2 or 3 meetings, you show up and they're like, who are these people?
Yeah.
And then after that third meeting, they were like, so you guys are going to keep coming back, right? And they're like, absolutely. We are here with you until they kick us out. So yeah, it was really fun. And so that's really what Between the Pages is is there for is to ensure that we give access to what we do and how we do what we do to everyone in our community.
Hmm.
It's important that everybody gets to see themselves as the hero of the stories they're reading and the books they're reading. It's so important. So we wanted to make sure that happened. And that project in schools we call the Narrative Thread Project, because the characters and stories from the books that we do the performance readings with weave themselves through everything that they touch that year.
Oh, that's super
Yeah.
awesome.
No, that sounds like a very immersive experience.
Speaking of immersive experiences, can you tell us a bit about the Camp Half Blood in Austin?
Yeah. So let's see. I was doing a lot of book talks in Austin. I was working for a local bookstore that I absolutely love and adore. And I was in front of a lot of kids telling them about my favorite books. And
Hmm.
Rick's the early or the advanced reader copy, the ARC of The Lightning Thief, kind of came through the store, and the lady that was in charge of the book buying for the children's department read it and said, "Topher, I really think you're going to like this."
Hmm.
Boy, was she right. So I still have that ARC copy signed by Rick, but I started taking that around to schools and kind of performing that first chapter because it's such a hook, right, guys? You know, the
Yeah,
ending
Yeah.
of that
yeah,
first
it
chapter.
is. Definitely.
And so I discovered that like all of the kids were riveted, and the teachers were riveted, and the librarians, and I get invited to come to other schools and talk about the Lightning Thief, and it was like this, like I didn't encounter anyone who didn't like it. It was the most amazing thing. And then it was like parents loved it, grandparents loved it, aunts and uncles loved it, kids loved it, their siblings, it's just their dog. It was like it was crazy. Not really the dog. I mean, maybe some of the dogs liked it, but I never had that kind of traction with a single book before. And because I was in front of all of those classrooms, it was in like 80 classrooms a week.
Wow,
It was a
that's a
lot.
lot.
It was a lot. And sometimes I'd be in front of a whole school. So, but yeah, it was amazing. And by the time, see, that was in 2005. By the time the first part of 2006 had rolled around, I think the advanced reader copy of The Sea of Monsters had come across. And they were still giving advanced reader copies of Rick's books at that point because they hadn't
Hmm.
quite yet blown up. That didn't really happen until like Titan's Curse.
Hmm.
And so I told all of the kids who had come to know me as like, he's the dude that reads The Lightning Thief. We invited them to like a family story time at the bookstore on the second floor. We had this amphitheater in there. And I said, "Hey man, show up in your PJs, like bring a sleeping bag, some pillows, hang out. I will perform the whole book, the whole Sea of Monsters book." I brought a coffee pot,
Wow.
had some Girl Scout cookies or something, and read the whole thing for like 6 hours. And nobody left. They all stayed. And I looked out on the audience and I remember thinking, gosh, wouldn't it be cool if Camp Half Blood was like real? You could actually go there. And all of the kids looked at me like I was the dumbest stump on the planet. They're like, well, yeah. And so I went, huh.
I think I would have reacted that way as well.
Yeah, right. And I was like, oh, maybe I can turn this into a camp, maybe. And so that was around, I think, late January, early February. And between that time and like May, I developed a business plan to try to have the first year of Camp Half Blood ever in
Hmm.
Austin, Texas. And I was lucky after I came up like with the plan to have the blessing of the store's CEO, and we were off and running. And I never like if you would have told me that one, the book series would become as popular as it had, and two, our camp would have become as popular as it has, I would have like laughed you out of the store. There's just no way I could have conceived that we would still be here doing what we're doing. So
Hmm.
from that year to now, a lot has changed about Camp Half Blood Austin, how we tell our stories, but it's always been immersive. it's always been a space where you show up and you're in the story. Like the second you get out of your car and wander into the space at the state park, there are it looks like our version of Camp Half Blood. And Rick, for year two, actually wrote a letter from Percy announcing us as the branch camp of the Long Island branch, and a letter welcoming you into the camp. And that made the rounds on the internet for a few years. So you guys may have come across it. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, Rick wrote that for us. So,
Wow.
for demigods that couldn't quite make it to Long Island branch, there was a halfway point, especially if you were coming from,
Hmm.
the left coast. Uh, yeah, it was really, really neat.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. That's kind of wild that you could just like have so much excitement for the book and turn that excitement into something tangible.
It was really fun, and I got to tell you, it was a whirlwind. I think I knew what I didn't want it to be, and I kept asking myself, what would 9-year-old Topher like really like to have in the camp? I've always had a wild imagination, and I've always loved telling stories, and I wanted that. I wanted that for all of our campers, and I wanted it to be a space where we
Hmm.
didn't force you to believe anything at all.
Hmm.
Instead, we asked you to come along for the ride and participate in the story in a way that you were comfortable doing, and we found that really was the trick for us. Uh,
Yeah.
we didn't want people to worry about, hey, I want to be Percy out at camp, or I want to be Annabeth out at camp. We decided early on that we were going to run parallel to Rick's books,
Hmm.
and not try to repeat anything from his books, because you would all imagine that so perfectly in your minds. We didn't want to
Yeah.
compete with that. So
Hmm.
instead, we have a story that runs parallel to Rick's that could plug in anywhere but not interfere at all. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
That's pretty crazy. And who did you write that story yourself?
Yeah, usually in those first years, it was me coming up with a story. And then as we progressed and the workload out at camp became greater, I was fortunate enough to have some really talented people who grew up in the camp and loved it and wanted to kind of pay it forward,
Hmm.
come along and organize us and help with the story. I'm still plugged into the story, and I still love being there because that's the thing that I love most. But yeah, I've got my fingers on all the costume design and the prop making and purchasing and the armor and the weapons, and my fingers are still kind of on everything, but I have such a talented, amazing staff now, who grew up. Most of them grew up going to camp, and so they know it inside and out, and they know what it's supposed to sound like and taste like and feel. It's really cool.
Hmm.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's really cool when the people who are behind it are people who have gone through the same thing. So it's not just like speculating or something. They know what's up and they know what they would have wanted and what the kids want.
Absolutely, they grew up in the culture, and they are the culture.
Yeah, going off of that, I wanted to ask. It sounds like you do have to put in a bit of prep work. So I'm wondering how much time does that
It takes
take?
about a
When do you have
year.
to start it?
It takes about a year. So we start thinking about camp about a week or two after camp is over. Uh,
Hmm.
Jeez.
Yeah. So the Isaiah Apfel is my kind of, to use Star Trek terminology, my number one. And he is the camp director these days. And he grew up. He came to camp when he was 9, and grew up at camp. You know, was a CIT, a counselor in training, and a counselor, and then ended up becoming camp director and program director, I should say. So went off to Berkeley and has degrees in chemical engineering and classics, and came back. He could have gone off and done amazing things and had internships anywhere he wanted. And he wanted to come back and help me start the nonprofit. And it was so touching to have someone like that who's been in my life now for over 15 summers, come back with all this talent and intellect and ability and say, I want to do this new thing with you. Yes, I could go off and do these other things, but this place is part of my happiness and I believe in it and I want to see it grow. And it was really cool.
Wow.
So it takes about a year, y'all. It takes a year to get registration, which happens in mid-November, and getting our locations down and getting the story crew to work on story and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it takes about a year.
Whoa.
Hmm.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. And so I'm wondering, kind of going on to the topic of virtual Camp Half Blood,
Mhm.
how early in the year did you realize like that was going to have to be a thing?
Well, it probably wasn't until around March, like everybody else,
Hmm. Yeah.
when we realized, uh-oh, this, like, we're going to have to prepare. And so Isaiah and I started working on what what is camp going to look like. And it was like, like for so many other things, the magic of camp for our campers and for us has always been grounded in that in-person experience, showing up and it smells like camp. There's incense burning. There's, ancient, Greek music playing. There are people walking around in armor. There are, Greek, columns and,
Hmm.
lanterns hanging in the trees. And it feels, it just occupies all of your senses. And we were
Yeah,
like,
it feels magical.
yeah, it really does. And we were like, how are we going to do this? And I was lucky enough to meet a really wonderful marketing person named Liz Hester, who said, "You can do this, Topher. I know you're sad. I know you and Isaiah are worried and bummed out and aren't sure if this is going to work, but you have to realize that the kids, need and want their demigod community. If they're going to have to socially separate in any case, why not give them a space where they can do that together as a demigod family? That's going to be needed, now more than ever." And she was right. So we started with the online quest. Are you guys familiar with how that's been going down?
Are you talking about the Zoom one or the sort of more choose your own adventure
This
one?
this this sort of kind of choose your own quest one. Yeah, yeah. So we
Yes, I've actually been working my way through
oh
that. It's
cool,
pretty fun.
cool. Yeah, and so we started there. We started with that
Hmm.
first, just to go, hey, listen, our demigods are isolated from their demigod community. Let's give them something, that has a little hope and smacks of camp and has our sword master and our hand-to-hand combat instructor and some of our other staff members kind of woven into it with some of that, choose your own quest video stuff. And so we
Hmm.
decided to do that first and see how it went. And the response was really, really wonderful. Like I I heard from the public and from camp staff that said, like, I read that first part of that chapter, the first section, and I
Hmm.
was crying because it felt like a little bit of Camp Half Blood Austin Branch was back. And so we knew that we were on the right path, and then it was a scramble from March until the start
Yeah,
of
because
camp. Yeah,
a year of preparation suddenly turned into like 3 months of preparation.
exactly. I mean, and we're talking about almost like an entirely new business having to.
Basically, yeah,
Yeah,
you have to reimagine the wheel.
exactly. And so fortunately, we have like I've said before, we have an amazing team.
Killer
Amazing team.
staff.
Yeah, just like the best. So everybody said, we are with you. We are with you guys. Let's do this. We were, not to lie, as we saw the refund requests roll in from our camp parents, it was horrifying. And there were
Hmm.
moments when Isaiah and I kind of looked at each other from across our Zoom screens and went, like prior to camp starting, I don't know if we're going to make it this year. Like, we're not going to have the money to operate because everybody thinks of camp as an in-person thing, and so many parents
Hmm.
watched their kids finish their school year in this digital platform that really kind of left them wanting and was kind of lacking community. So because it's an educational process, right? Like the schools have to push content. You got to learn these things. Let's get this. Like let's get through this.
Yeah, They're trying to like instill you with this information, not trying to like
build.
build an
Yeah,
understanding. Yeah.
yeah. And so we made a really, really conscious choice, and I'll circle back to the whole community thing. We made a really conscious choice to be very community forward. We knew how to do the content because we've been doing it for years in the in-person camp. And so it was just figuring out how to translate that. Like, how are the kids going to?
Into something
Yeah,
virtual.
how are the kids going to go on quest? What's that going to look like? And we figured that out pretty quickly. We had a guy come in who helps us with our podcast, Moises, and he's wonderful, and he really helped us kind of fine tune and figure out how to make the like the questing part like really safe, and like safe like for all of our people involved, and
Hmm.
yeah, it was like, again, we seem to be at the confluence of a lot of happy circumstance and amazing staff, and so it wasn't as painful in the end as we were dreading it would be. And after that first week of camp, of online camp, like parents were saying, we didn't think that you'd be able to pull this off, but
Hmm.
you kind of,
You
you
kind
kind
of
of
did
did it.
it.
Yeah. I mean, we're not a magic pill. We're not gonna be for
Yeah.
everybody, but by and large, the campers and our camp parents were blown away. Like, we'd hear stuff from parents like, I haven't seen my kid this happy and engaged since March 13th.
Yeah.
Like you hear that stuff and you're like, we're doing something right, yay. you know?
Yes. You have the little celebration inside, like the little high fives around.
Yes. Yeah. And
Virtual high
yeah,
fives.
virtual
Yeah,
high fives
virtual high
everywhere. Yeah, virtual
fives.
hugs, high fives, all of it. And so,
Ecstatic screaming in the
yeah, I mean,
background.
we're still paying people refunds that need it. We had a lot of camp
Hmm.
families that were in economic hardship, and we recognize that. And are as more people are enrolling throughout the summer, as word gets out, and they're like, oh, this is a really fun program, and I can attend from anywhere in the world. So, you
Yeah.
know, Brazil and the
That's
Philippines.
something that's
Yeah, it's
crazy.
really cool. We're mailing our Hermes Air demigod boxes all over the place now, and it's super, super cool. So you get sword making supplies, you get your T-shirt, your camp bandana. You always get a book, every year. So it was either Tristan Strong punches a hole in the sky, which we adore, or
Hmm.
it
Fantastic
is
book.
so good. Or it was the Camp Jupiter Journal, for the
Hmm.
Probatia. So it really, really cool. And then little gifts that are cabin themed are all in there.
Oh, depending on what you chose
Yeah, yeah,
or what you had been in the past.
yeah. So like, if like once you're claimed into your cabin after the claiming ceremony, that's your cabin for life.
Hmm.
This year, the campers all got a letter from Frank Zhang, saying like, hey, Topher and Isaiah have contacted me, and asked for a little help, and I recommended moving Camp Half Blood into the cohort system just for the summer. It makes you more flexible. Your groups can have all sorts of cabin representation. You
Hmm.
can mix strengths and cover one another's weaknesses, and you'll be faster and more nimble. It was really cool. So this year we've adopted a bit more of a Camp Jupiter style, and it makes us far more
Hmm.
resilient and easy to move around, and it gives the camp staff and I more flexibility for staffing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about figuring out how to make the changes necessary without breaking the magic of it
Absolutely,
all.
you guys understand completely.
Yeah. So I've seen sort of the trailers you have for the Zoom quest, and they look really, really fun. And so of course you are using
Mhm.
Zoom, but I'm wondering, whatever technologies have you started using? How did you figure out how to use them? Which ones are working out for the better, stuff like that.
We figured out pretty quickly that we were going to need some sort of like gimbal for our cell phones because
Hmm.
nobody wants to get motion sickness watching a questing video. It's
Yeah.
mostly Zoom, it's gimbals, it's minimal lighting. Like I would love to be able to share with you this week's kind of story videos because they were kind of terrifying. And it was revealed that a certain uh, Mayan death kind of deity was going to make a play
Hmm.
from a distant realm. And so we had a lot of ghosts and undead spirits kind of wandering around in buildings with
Hmm.
low light and
Yeah.
a lot of jump scare moments and a lot of humor too, and a lot of humor.
Hmm.
So it's really, really fun. And
Yeah,
so
that's
yeah,
that's kind of the style: magic, humor, and the occasional jump
yes,
scare.
yes, absolutely. And it's a pretty winning combination. But yeah, it was a
Yeah.
really, really cool week this week, and we had our first nighttime quest. Of course, it's going to be during
Ooh.
the Ghost Week, and it's so strange. Like I know what's up, right? Like I know what's going on, but there is
Hmm.
something about a ghost story that gets me. Like I
Hmm.
was
Yeah.
getting chills. It's yeah, it was fun. So in terms of technology, aside from Zoom, we really didn't have to utilize too many other things, kind of beyond that, and like hardware, like gimbals. It was figuring out how to get the most out of what we had, and this year
Hmm.
especially spending as little money on anything new that we couldn't figure out how to do simply. And we're finding that
Yeah.
on Zoom with the video resolution, what it is, turns out you can get away with a little bit more, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been technology wise a pretty easy transition for us. We have our camp enrollment systems. We have the online platform for the online platform for the camp, and also the online quests. And by the way, I'll drop this here like for you. Carlos is going to be writing one of our online quests for the year. I know.
Oh.
So
Oh no. Oh no. It looks like we're going questing today,
yeah,
Samuel.
hopefully he'll be in the January release, like for that online quest. We'll have one in April, October, January, April. So we're hoping, it's enough time for him to get the January release going. And he actually, when he was with us Wednesday, he asked the camp. He's like, "All right, I've been to camp. I know what kind of weird monsters you have out there and what happens out there. What would you like to see more of?" And like one of the funny things was kids pointing out things that didn't work well enough, like for them in the thing that you had written, like me. And I'm going, yeah, it's sort of a cringeworthy moment,
It's
you
like,
know. But it
I thought you loved that part,
yeah,
Jimmy.
that part made me cry. Come on. Um, yeah, and so Carlos, Carlos, knowing that I'd written the first one, was very gracious, and I kept an even face, and then took notes, and it was really, really cool. So he got to hear from the kids that had already been through it, what they'd like to see. I think the first thing that they mentioned was more bad puns, more bad puns.
Well,
Bad
Carlos
puns are the
is the
best.
master of that. So.
Yes.
Yeah, Carlos is the bad pun
Yeah, he
master.
mentioned he was going to try to gamify, like if I could have you level up in the story somehow, would that be cool? And the kids were like, "Yeah, of course."
Yeah. Carlos, I don't know. Is this? Yeah, like last time we saw him in person, he he actually like let me beta
His
test
game,
his
yeah,
brand new story game, which was pretty
yeah, that
sweet.
is so cool.
So you are going to be continuing the virtual quests like throughout the year?
Absolutely. There's a part of my brain that kind of tells me that this is going to last a little longer than we think, and we don't want to leave our demigod community alone.
Hmm.
And these writing things take time,
Yeah,
so if you want something to happen in January, you have to let Carlos know
that's
now,
right. I
right?
mean, it's only fair. And Carlos is, like all of the Rick Riordan kind of presents authors and Rick himself. They're always very upfront about what they can and can't do, and I so appreciate that from all of them.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's like it's always very real, right? So
Hmm.
like when I was talking to Carlos and I said I would love it if you would consider doing it. He's like, yeah, I'll totally do that. He's like, I liked the first one, it was really cool. So I was a sensitivity reader for Sal and Gabby Fix the Universe, like for the diabetic stuff, because I'm a type 1 diabetic. And so Carlos reached out to me
Hmm.
and he said, hey, can you look this over? It's in manuscript form. He wrote a big section of it out at Camp Half Blood Austin. The villains apparently let him keep his laptop, and so he was able to.
When
When
he
he was
was
kidnapped,
kidnapped. He was kidnapped, but they're
you know
like,
what?
actually, we kind of want Sal and Gabby too as
Yes,
well, so you can have your
that's right.
laptop
And
back.
so he was able to write a big section of it out there, which was kind of cool. Carlos is like, yeah, like maybe I can help you out. I was like, you don't need to help me out or do anything. It is an honor to be able to look at it early and offer any feedback. So it's really, really cool. And Carlos is amazing.
Yes, he is. So I'm wondering, of course, you're going to be continuing these virtual
Yeah.
quests throughout the coronavirus pandemic. We don't know how long that will go on. But I am wondering, would you want to keep doing these virtual quests after, just as a means for maybe not solely virtual? Obviously, we all want to get back to socializing, but for people who aren't in Austin.
Yeah, or maybe not the specifically like the Zoom quest, but maybe like continuing the choose your own adventure for people who kind of want to participate in the adventure but can't fly
Yeah,
out to Austin.
absolutely. I think the plan at this point for us, with the nonprofit is to release them quarterly. So they'll be for a year. That will not necessarily be linked, but will be Austin Camp Half Blood branch like centric. So
Hmm.
one of the things that we want to be careful with and cognizant of is, yes, we were the first Camp Half Blood Austin branch, but the IP doesn't belong to us.
Hmm.
We are allowed to do it because Rick and Disney like us, and um,
Yeah.
and
That's the
it
most important
is.
part
It
right
is.
there.
And we asked for permission. When I began Camp Half Blood in 2006, that first year, I asked for permission. I asked Rick's permission and I asked Disney's permission, and they gave it. And so, doing that first is so, so important. And Rick was very quick to understand that, um, you know, Camp Half Blood, the actual physical camps, he felt, at least philosophically, didn't just belong to him, it belonged to the public, and that he wanted, demigods, wherever they were, to be able to experience that for themselves in whatever way they could. And so it's been really nice that that we've been allowed to do it. And so, Carlos recognizing that, while he and I were talking, I said, and we have Mr. D out there, and we hear from other characters, but you'll notice that beyond Mr. D and maybe dropping Annabeth's name in that first, Nero and the Apple of Discord, uh, we don't mention anybody else by name directly. Uh, we give really big hints and descriptions so that you can, you're like, oh, that was this person. Oh yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but but we don't want to be too invasive. And so Carlos was like, you guys have 15 years of story history. He's like, that's plenty, to like, mine um, good story and information. And I said, yeah. And Carlos, can you make it like a Latinx experience? And he's like, yeah, I think that'd be really, really cool. It's still Camp Half Blood Austin branch, but with the Latinx like focus. Um, so
Hmm.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what he comes up with. Getting him the Bible for for the for the online demigod quests has been like a challenge. Like some of it's already been done, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like anybody else working on this is going to need this same thing, and there has to be a ton of information
Yeah.
about all of the Austin branch kind of personalities and character and history and monsters
Hmm.
and like all of that stuff, so that the authors that you ask and hand it off to have this thing to kind of this reference material to look at and
Yeah.
make story decisions from. So yeah,
Because yeah, I think we know this like from interviewing a bunch of them, but a large part of writing a book about mythology is doing the
yeah,
research behind it. And as you mentioned as well, the sensitivity reading and doing the research behind anything you want to put in your book, so that like you make sure that your book is as accurate
for
as
sure,
possible.
absolutely.
So yeah, having the reference material would definitely make that a lot easier. This is kind of another question that we had. Samuel mentioned the trailer videos that you guys have for your online quest, but how did your advertising strategy kind of change from having to kind of say, "Oh yeah, welcome," and immerse yourself
Yes,
in the world to sit on your laptop at home?
that was all our kind of marketing person, Liz Hester, who's just wonderful. She developed our social media kind of marketing ads, and um, it was a tone and message that I personally kind of wasn't used to, because we never really had to do much marketing.
Hmm.
I hate to say that, but now I feel kind of like a fool, but it had been word of mouth for years and years and years. And and with the pandemic, uh, everything changed. And so we had to go after a group of folks that we weren't really used to directly reaching out to. And so
Hmm.
she developed all of those kind of Percy Jackson LARPing ads that, popped up on Facebook and Instagram and all of that kind of stuff. And I probably never would have thought to do that, like ever. Um, so yeah, our marketing and advertising became far more focused. A lot of research has been put into it, and a lot of money has been like money and time has been put into it, and it's we're getting a lot of people clicking through those ads and getting on the social media platform we have, the Half Bloods Assemble.
Hmm.
So there are over 5,000 demigods in there now. It's crazy. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
No. I think yeah. So we didn't know much about marketing until
Hmm.
Liz came on, and that comes with a whole different set of terms and concepts and all sorts of things that we had to quickly kind of become comfortable with. At least I did. So
And kind of backtracking a bit, between the pages is also a podcast. So I kind of wanted
yeah.
to ask, can you tell us a bit about that? But also, how has that helped promote Camp Half Blood this
Well,
year?
I don't know. I don't know that it's helped kind of reach a new audience. That was something that we started doing even before the online quest stuff. Um, we wanted to
Hmm.
have a podcast that felt like um, a, a group of older kids having a book club talk about The Lightning Thief, and then doing performance readings, these little kind of excerpted kind of performance reading sections of the book, um, and then
Hmm.
talking about them. And for a lot of our demigod families, it was sort of like getting to hang out at camp with us,
Hmm.
while they were at home putting their feet up on the stool around the radio, kind of harkened back to those, old times in the 40s and 50s where families would gather around the radio cabinet.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of what we wanted with this, and just to get a group of people who were camp staff who'd been out there for a long time, who some of whom didn't like the book the first time they read it, and then in subsequent readings went, oh no, I actually do like this. We can get their perspectives, or just folks who are going to be really real about and authentic about their experiences with the Lightning Thief and how they came to camp. Some of our camp counselors, some of our camp staff hadn't read through the whole series like when they came to us. That didn't happen until later. So, but yeah, just having a group discussion, and it's been mostly for our current camp families who just kind of miss it. So if it grows into something else, that would be great. We're going to continue on. It's paused for now, kind of during camp, because we're also busy doing that. But once camp is over and things start kind of back up in August, then we'll pick the podcast back up.
Yeah,
That's great.
Well, that's picking the podcast back up after a couple of months is something we are kind of experts in.
Are you? Yeah. I know there's some momentum loss there that everybody kind of talks about. But I think we have a good, like you guys, a good kind of built-in audience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay. Yeah, so we're kind of nearing the end of the interview, so just a couple more questions left. But what changes would you have you implemented already over the years from like the first Camp Half-Blood to Camp Half-Blood 2019?
Yeah.
And what do you want to add in the future? This is all like assuming that we can return to camp safe and
Right.
sound.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, like one of the biggest things that has changed is we've added God and Goddess cabins over the years. We have we didn't have quests at first because the space that we were in the first year, we couldn't really kind of take the kids off and go adventuring on quests. And most of the ideas that have grown into our favorite things have come from campers. So at the end of every week or every session, I would ask our campers, all right, so what did you like? What could we do better? What would you like to see? What's on your wish list? And I was like, let's go on actual quests,
Such a good suggestion,
Yeah.
Jimmy.
Yeah. You know what I would really like? I would really like to go on a real quest.
Yeah. And so that kind of stuff has changed. The types of monsters we encounter and what those look like, and how people interact with the heroes and villains of our camp stories has changed dramatically. So yeah, it's been really cool. There's some consistent things too. Sword championship at the end of the week, where you win medals. Archery championship. The first year we didn't have Mythomagic. In fact, the first and second year we didn't have Mythomagic. It wasn't until the third year that we created a big, huge, massive set of islands with Greek temples on them. And I started painting figures and making cards, for Mythomagic. And I think at the Titan's Curse, or maybe it was Battle of the Labyrinth, maybe, Rick was having a world release party at the bookstore, and he was one of the first people to play the game with us. And Mythomagic from that point forward has been probably one of the most popular games, like almost annoyingly popular.
Yeah.
Because we don't have enough space. So, we can't fit everybody that wants to play every day. That's
I made
changed.
you a sword, and you keep asking to play a card game. Stop it, Jimmy.
Yeah,
Right,
come
right.
on.
Yeah. So that's shifted over to Roll20. The online platform that so many other places are using.
What was it originally?
I mean, it was a big in-person 6 foot long table by 3 feet wide with actual figures. So I take figures from like HeroClix and any of the other kind of plastic sort of tabletop gaming figures, and I'd cut them apart and glue them back together, and then hand paint them all. So there are like hundreds and hundreds of these like demigod, orange shirted and purple shirted, and now with Hotel Valhalla, green shirted demigods kind of floating around. You know, a lot of Perunk folks, belonging to the various gnomes all over the place. And so the game has grown to include, the Rick Riordan Presents kind of series because the kids want to interact with all that stuff. So yeah, it's really cool. So that's been fun. And where we hope to go in the future, we have 500 acres of camp land that were made available for us to either lease or purchase and build a permanent camp home on about 2.5 years ago. And right now, all of that is on hold because of the pandemic. So, donations to the nonprofit have really, really kind of slowed down because folks are hanging on to their cash and, protecting their families like you'd expect. So, the future is uncertain there, but I know that I want to do it. And the camp land, like the potential camp land, has like 4 like natural springs on it. It's on top of a hill that I call Camp Half-Blood Hill. Half-Blood Hill. You have to cross 2 waterfalls in order to get to it. It's like it's really
The
cool.
whole jazz.
The whole thing, yeah. It's not pine trees and all that kind of stuff.
Forget about the ribbon waterfall.
It's like, yeah, the one waterfall that I really love is called Minotaur Falls, and it's really neat. Someday I'd love you guys to come out and see it. I'd love to be able to
No,
build.
we
Oh
would
yeah,
we
we'd love
would
that.
we would love to do so.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah, I
if
think
Minotaur
if
Falls, that's just awesome.
yeah, but if only there was a way to participate in camp from anywhere in the world. Samuel, I
you
don't I
guys,
don't really think that's possible right now, is it?
you guys should join us. Come for the Teen Week.
We would absolutely love to.
We would love you to drop in and go questing with us. I'll send you the info.
No,
Okay, sure.
thanks so
Thanks
much,
for that.
Topher.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is kind of our final question before we kind of wrap up. But when campers return home from camp, what is it that you hope that they learn from their experience at Camp Half Blood Austin Branch, and what do you hope that they will take with them as they continue on with their lives?
Yeah, I think that one for me has pretty much been universal in that kindness and compassion and
Hmm.
love should be given freely and at every turn. That you should stand up for yourself and for people that haven't found their voice yet or have had their voice kind of taken away. You stand up for them. That is where heroism really comes from, deep down, and sometimes it's uncomfortable and ugly and nasty. And when you're with a group of friends and they do or say something that is not okay, you say something
Hmm.
and you do something. That that is what I want our campers to go home with, understanding that they have a voice, that who they are and how they identify in the world, however they identify, is valid and beautiful, and we love them. And that getting to know yourself and understanding that you have a place in your community and your voice matters and who you are matters is so, so very important, and that we're a safe place for all of that. And I want them to take that home, tell people they love that they love them. It sounds super like sappy, I know, but it's like it's who we are,
Hmm.
and I think that sort of sappiness that comes from me, it's genuine, it's earnest, and I mean it, and I think it helps to keep bringing people back because they know they're loved here. They know that they're valued, and they know that who they are is okay. And that's what I want them to go home with.
Thanks.
Wow.
Thanks so much for sharing that really powerful message with us. It's a great thing to sort of think on and keep with
Thanks.
us.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
kind of end on. Thanks so much for joining us today. We really kind of went over our usual mark for episodes here, but I'm glad that we did.
yeah, send them to camphalfbloodaustinorg/quest. And that's, you can still enroll in camp. We still have episode, like there's still summer camp left. So we'd love to have anybody that wants to join.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we'll definitely put that in the show notes. Is there anything else you would like to plug?
No, that's it. I want to plug you guys. Keep up the good work.
Oh, thank
I
you.
hear great things, and I
Thank
look
you.
forward to hopefully seeing
Thanks.
you for week 7. That'd be really great.
Oh yeah, we'd love
No,
to.
I'm
Thank
sure
you.
we would love to participate in that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, so that was a really great interview with Topher. I'm so glad we could have him on the podcast.
Yeah.
Diego, you want to end this one?
Yeah, sure thing. That's it for this episode of the Half Blood Report. Samuel, how can I contact this podcast?
You can follow the show on Twitter at Half Report. You can also find us on Instagram at The Half Blood Report, or email the show at thehalfbloodreport@gmail.com. Please do that because next week we're going to be doing a bit of a mailbag as a celebration for our 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, so look forward. Yeah, I don't know if we've announced this. We'll probably put it up on the socials, but next episode is the 1 year anniversary of when we started this podcast. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that. It's going to be a special episode, and if you guys have any emails or any comments or kind of congratulations, email them to us and we'll read them out in the next episode.
yeah, we also have a website, thehalfbloodreport.com.
Yeah, and that said, it's time for credits. Our theme music is actually by me.
I do our editing. My co-host here is Diego, and I'm Samuel.
This is the Half Blood Report podcast, the only HBR that matters. Survive till next week.
Hey folks, I'm Topher Bradfield, founder of Camp Half-Blood Austin Branch, which has been around since 2006 and has been training demigods how to survive mostly from that time to this. And I gotta tell you, there's no way that you would get me to listen to the Half-Blood Report. No, just no.